things up just a little bit. We've got some slightly different presentations today. I'm going to kick it over to Chandra to tell you a little bit more about that here in just a second. Real quick, I want to say thanks to Dream Bank for the space and to Starting Block for continued support. And now I will kick it over to Chandra. We're gonna
skip intros.
We're gonna skip intros, and
but we're not gonna skip checking in on the app.
right. Get the 1 Million Cups app on your phone. It's on all the phones, and hit the check-in button. I'm gonna kick it over to Chandra now.
Okay. So I apologize for a little bit of a format change. It's because we have. Well, we were going to have 3 presenters, but one of them had a medical emergency yesterday with his family, so now we have 2 presenters, and one of them has another meeting set up. So he's going to quick do his presentation, do some questions, and then take off, and then we'll have the second presenter. So the presenters that are going to be this week and next week are part of Starting Block's Social Impact Initiative. So we have 8 teams that are here at Starting Block from January until June. They're all in the social entrepreneur space. And we're really excited to have them here. They have been practicing and preparing a pitch for our June 26th birthday bash and Mad Minute Pitch Showcase. And the Mad Minute Pitch Showcase is going to be a lot of fun because we're doing it not only with the 8 teams that are part of the Starting Block Social Impact Initiative, but we're collaborating with Generator and their Social Impact Accelerator program. So you'll actually get to see, I think, 16 teams, all in social entrepreneur space, from both Starting Block and Generator. So save the date, June 26th, we're having another party with cake and some really great pitches. And then I'm going to turn it over to CoSE, right?
Yeah.
All right, I'll let you go.
Awesome.
Sorry,
Yeah.
forgot the last thing. These pitches are short because the June 26th, we're giving them short pitches as well. So they're practicing a short pitch, but they're available for questions afterwards. Okay, now it's all yours.
Thank you.
Awesome. Good morning. I'm Travis from CoSE Instruments Collaborative Science Environment. As you see up there, we are changing the world for everyone, in particular, everyone here in this room, looking back in your past and into the future in the community. Everybody can be a scientist. My partner there, Richard, will be in a little bit later for questions. So here's one of our many examples of how we can take a normal learner and change him into a scientist. I first stopped into a lab down at the UW-Madison campus a few years back and started using one of our instruments from New York City, and got inspired, got connected. Now he is a researcher, scientist, both at the start and now as a career. And what really happened was really a simple thing that we've seen all along with our devices, our ecosystem, the way we shape out. We've got these structures that allow things that were normally partitioned up in a research lab to be unveiled to everybody. Unveiled in community centers, after school clubs, neighborhood gardens, classrooms. And it's a beautiful thing to see how we can track a change in a person's attitude when they belong and connect to the science. So our instruments, the CoSE stands for Collaborative Science Environment, and it's not just about these individuals doing these amazing experiences. It's really about making connections to our ecosystem. And we do that by having a cloud-based dashboard connected to this system called Cyberse, which allows things that you normally would spend hours and hours in the classroom making graphs, all that gets automated. So now you get a chance to kind of think about how you, as one individual of 10,000, can make things happen. And from a researcher's perspective, that's really powerful, because it used to take a week to do an experiment, but now you can do 10,000 in a week with this crowdsourced data. So we've got a number of different products that are on the line to kind of bring all this possibilities to action, creating scientists all over the world. The cool thing is that we've got a couple of them that are just really moving, and this one in particular is going to be our mass market device. It's just kind of like a little trapeze artist for plants. You put plants in there, you mess up the gravity, and then after kind of a week in there, you take a picture and you see, well, how's it changed? That really determines like how a plant's root moves and all these issues of food deserts and having a challenge of growing your own food and climate issues can be solved geographically in the world, all around the world. This is our latest device that is being tested down in NASA at the Kennedy Space Center right now. They've got a lot of interest to do some pre-orders. Again, we take plants and different stuff and put them inside this chamber. And then they have manipulations of lights and different sensors in there so that we can determine what's happening to that plant. And the cool thing is, again, that network of working with researchers has brought about some early sales in this, and we just actually have another sale of this particular product in another NASA center in Ames, which is really cool. So I give you a little tidbit of one of our, that's called the Size Spinner Max. All around the world, we've been getting connections just out of the blue, sometimes from research papers that have been published using our instruments, or people wanting to connect and use these. Sometimes it's from community-based organizations, schools, and researchers, but there are a lot of networks that are really kind of exciting for us to be able to leverage once we get our supply chain set up. So there's our squad. Simon's down in Kennedy Space Center right now for this year, and then Richard is a researcher, kind of the chief plant officer, we call him, and Xinu is our chief engineer. We got all these groups to really kind of thank to get us to this point, and at that point, I'll stop and answer any questions.
Do I understand? Okay, so you make the device.
Yeah.
But there's also a social component or a sharing component.
So that's, our cloud dashboard allows for, if you take this research tool and use it for a week, you'll be able to see how your research contributed to solving a real science problem.
So if I'm a researcher, I can post a, hey guys, I need some help with this. Here's the modality, or here's the recipe for what I'd like you to do, etc.
That's where we start. We start with the researchers' networks, and then we hone in on experiments that can be crowdsourced in a way that would leverage their use of this platform in a way that their labs just couldn't do. They've got 5 or 6 graduate students and postdocs. So let's make that 10,000. And so we say, can we do that in crowdsource your data? It's kind of like massive parallel computing, but massive parallel experimentation.
And the experimenters could be everything from grade schoolers to postdocs.
And the difference from citizen science to what we do is that our hardware builds in validity for that experiment. So it's not just like you can just use your camera and do all sorts of different things. We have our imaging, processing, all that kind of stuff set up so it's standardized, and that's a huge difference for our kind of crowdsourced data.
Who are your customers in this scenario? Is it the citizens, or is it the scientists, or?
We've got 3 customer profiles. One is the researchers that will buy the tools directly. 2 is educators, mostly high school educators in biology and environmental science, those groups. And then the 3rd group is in first and second year undergraduate courses, as well as technical colleges. All the labs that are kind of going through their discussion sections and courses in that space as well. If you think the easiest way to say this, anywhere there's a microscope right now, you're going to take the microscope out or augment it with these students. Yes?
So you mentioned the problem was manufacturing the product, or?
So right now, that's, we're feeling like we're a favorite flower that's getting pollinated from everywhere, but we need to reproduce our flowers. So yes, that's our bottleneck now. We've identified some possible streams to get that so we can scale. But that is our hold up in terms of our prototypes and use factors for our different products. We feel pretty good about that. We've done a lot of testing at a level that's DIY capable. But we need to that production. That's our space that we need some help.
What's the sustainability strategy from like an economic perspective? Is this funded by the researchers in that first tier that you talked about? Is it grant supported? Is it some combination?
Yeah, it is a combination. There's a direct product sales for the instruments. There's a subscription to stay connected to the current research applications. So what experiments are being done? That will be a subscription model, the curriculum activities and things like that, with video profiles and different things with the scientists. And then we know, based on some of our prior connections, that foundations and different granting institutes are interested in both helping deployment. Once these institutes are available to change the experience of after-school clubs and learning centers in high schools and first and second year kind of programs and technologies. We know that there's some support there. So those are our major spaces that we have identified in sustainable.
Yeah, so they need to be deployed like permanently into the school, like you have a foundation of, place it permanently in the school, or is it something that you could package up and say for a semester and then?
So right now we're on the model of we are kind of getting things out for kind of more of a cycle that we anticipate will be 3 to 5 years of cycling through. We've looked at models of the Chromebooks and have those things get used out in classrooms, and there's some lease models and there's some purchase models that we've identified that we want to learn more about, and we're really just kind of trying to figure that out. I think for our lower cost equipment, so we have a range, that would be something that you purchase, and it would be economically, it wouldn't make sense to kind of have that in the lease plan going into our higher tier products, which I didn't really talk about, ones that are about the same price as a microscope. Those ones are about considering a 3 or 5 year lease program. But for hybrid, we're going to evolve as well.
Is the hardware the foot in the door that you see in the initial conversation, or is it people see the output, go, that's cool, and then?
I think it's the latter. It's a change of how you can be involved in science, whether that is a researcher, a kid, or a teacher facilitating something that's not artificial in the classroom. I think that's a big deal. It's like, wow, this is something that's real. And by real, it's affecting, you got a lot of NASA connected things. Starting with the first habitation modules on the moon, it's kind of a fun thing, right? I think that's like a real thing. Looking at how climate change has affected what plants grow with drought resistance. That, our tool, can map out and do something to learn about that across the world. And if you're in a space where you're like, I can help figure out how food can grow in places it's really hard to grow right now. And we can do that. That's an exciting thing for us. So that, I think, is for us, that's part of the motivation, is to have that group that both does science and realizes the impact of science. So that's our strong motivation.
Yeah, it seems to me the story is really interesting, and that leads to engagement with the product. What's the price point of these things?
So the different products. So this one right here, this is a 2D clinostat. There are existing ones for between $150 to $250. We think we can get this. Well, we know we can sell for about $15. It's still be A-okay, and do well and profit. This clinostat thing, right now we're just selling those to NASA at kind of a discounted early rate of $5,000. We have the best one in the world right now, according to them. There's a couple other places that sell them, but they're like, wow, yours is like the best by far. So that's been a great network effect, and we've got this kind of push there. We do see that one less scaling to school settings and more kind of creating this research network that will then help to kind of connect up to our other networks. We want those researchers to feel not just like they're helping with their research, but then they can connect with the community. And then this one is our big one that we see long term. It's a 4-chamber imaging chamber that you can put all sorts of things in there, bugs, stem cells, plants. It's got light variation and a little rotation thing. You can study gravity and all sorts of different things again, but it's all standardized. So that one, the CoSE chamber, that's our big piece, and this is about the same price as a microscope. It's about $600. And if you compare that, we can do all this kind of experimentation that wouldn't be able to be done with a microscope, and there's 4 times as many microscopes in there. There's actually 4 different experiment chambers. That's where we see a school being able to buy one and buy a set, of 4, so they have 16, and then move around to different classrooms throughout the whole year. We want to make this so it's accessible. That's really part of our goal. We can crank that up, but we really want to make that access a key part of it.
So the name suggests to me a very kind of a wide net. We talk about collaborative science. The equipment seems to be fairly specific and narrow. Is that, can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think you pinpoint one of the things we were writing for another application for a tool foundry program. That's the difference. It's hard to do crowdsourced science when everybody has different experimentation and different devices, right? They have different properties. They might just have the same chamber, but they have a different camera, or they might have a different lighting system. So now to do good science, we've got to figure out what do they use, how do they use it. So I'm down on UW campus, and I see this all the time with great experiments, whether it's in cell biology, plant biology, whatever it is. And then now you have to get a biostatistician to try to figure out how one relates to the other and tease out all the variables. Get rid of that. Let's just make it easier and have this reductionist approach. But then when they use the tool, it's connected in a way that creates validity for the science. But yes, it is reductionist analytics. I think that's really novel in terms of the type of equipment that comes into a classroom or some missions that we do. Things that go across pH probes, force sensors, things that kids can learn about science. That's legendary new science.
Any final asks that you have? I know you were asking for
Yeah.
help with any
So-
kinds inside.
Yeah, so I mean, our big thing we know for each of these products, we have kind of some things mapped out in terms of looking for partners to help support that product line and getting things launched out. So these are our 3 pieces. We've identified our manufacturing that could work within that space, as well as some initial customer support once we scale. And everything kind of turns out to be, in a nutshell, around $250K per kind of equipment line that we move through. We have a strategy that we don't want to release all 5 at once. And we actually have a lot of great bootstrapping potential now with our CoSE size of the one that NASA is really interested in. So we'd like to kind of figure out how those things could work together. But yeah, that's really, those are our 3 kind of benchmarks that we're looking at to help springboard us so that we can get to not being that little flower that's being pollinated. We can be a field of flowers.
DPI stands for
Department of Public Instruction. So, and they're again, met with them. They're very interested in terms of helping us network and get connected to change what's happening in science and how kids interact with technology and science.
Just the parts that you have there, when they go into your equipment, where are those plastic parts? Where are things now?
We do that all.
You do it all the time?
Yep. So Jinyu is our chief engineer. We 3D print parts and we crowdsource. We do some of our own consumables and things like that. We gotta buy a lot of off-the-shelf things, Arduino, Raspberry Pis, and try to figure out how they all work together. And be able to crowdsource that. Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, should I jump into it?
Go for it.
All right. everyone. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your thoughtful questions that I'm sure I will be receiving here after going through just a brief overview of my organization. Fair Opportunity Project is a new nationally focused nonprofit organization with a mission to empower students to access and afford college through a curated platform of comprehensive resources. So, how did we get to that? Here's our core team. You can see we've got Cole and Luke. They are college age. They hit tremendous challenges themselves in terms of figuring out how to navigate the college process, how to understand how to afford college. And I came upon what they were doing a little over a year ago after a career of working in various areas of the university around college access, educational policy, higher ed, and was frustrated, frankly, that the system was as complicated and we were losing lots of students along the way, particularly the students really that we most really need to help. So here's the problem, here's the challenge. 482 to 1. That number represents the ratio, the average ratio of students in a public high school to counselors. Students have all kinds of questions, and some of the examples you see in the bubbles there are questions that we've heard, and certainly ones that I've heard across the course of my career. So what it means is that students don't have time to connect to their counselors, and counselors, as you might imagine, have all kinds of challenges and duties and responsibilities, which means that they have very little time to address college issues. As a consequence, very often what can happen is that students take on too much debt. I think we all can agree we're hearing a lot about that in the news. They may not understand differences between sticker price, net price, affordability. They may not understand that the benefit, the economic benefit that you get from even starting college has to come with completion of college, and so they may not graduate. And in fact, only about 59% of our students who start college actually graduate with a 4-year degree 6 years later. They may underestimate the overall benefit of a college degree and choose to not go at all. In fact, 4 in 10 rural high school students choose to not go to college, and we're not talking about those who are simply not going because they are low income. So, our solution. This is a screenshot of our website. And so what we did with the lead of our founders was create all kinds of pretty low-tech, very easily, freely accessible materials. You can go to this website, you can download, you can view videos, and these are, again, really low-tech college students talking about different steps of the process. We have a free newsletter that we send out twice a month during the school year, where we highlight tools that we have found, tech tools, around scholarship searches perhaps, filling in college application forms. These are things that we review, that we know have a free basis, and that we can recommend. We are, part of our team is actually starting a virtual mentor program. We have a quiz, just different ways to engage. Our cornerstone product is our guide. And so Cole and Luke, 2 years ago, decided to sit down because they were getting all kinds of questions once they had actually made that leap into college successfully from their friends and relatives and neighbors from back home. So they sat down, they wrote a comprehensive kind of A to Z guide, step by step in a student voice, answering the various questions, the steps along the way. They included things like examples of college essays, and they have a data science background as smart students themselves, and they sent this guide out to 64,000 public educators across America, and they said, we hope that this is helpful. The guide has gotten resounding response to the extent that we have had volunteers who have subsequently translated it into Spanish, into Chinese, and believe it or not, very soon into Turkish. This is all a bootstrapped effort. This is all a volunteer effort. This is a labor of love, which we hope to transform, at least in some ways. We've seen 100,000 downloads of the guide. Anyone can go to the resource, our website, and download them. Our founders were recognized a few years back from Forbes 30 Under 30. We've seen traffic from over 200 countries, and we continue to see thousands of visitors each month. All of this speaks to the need that we saw that began this effort, and we continue to see. So based on the feedback we've received, and I've been really lucky to have the benefit of being in this building basically since last fall, so as part of the G-Beta Social Impact Group. And as Chandra mentioned, I'm also part now of the Social Impact Initiative. So we've had lots of great conversations, lots of ways to get feedback on what it is we're doing and what we should be doing more of. So based on that, we know we're trying to work on better analytics. So we're trying to, again, keep the barriers to the access to the information as minimal as possible, but really understand how people are engaging with the material, how it's changing their trajectory. We've also heard that it would be very useful to have a very simple, straightforward curriculum to train trainers. So these might be mentors who are working with like a boys or girls club. They might be adults, caring adults who want to know that they're actually getting the right kinds of advice. We also know rural Americans are the least college going now in the country. We saw resounding traction, and we continue to see this in the analytics that we do track of schools in remote areas really tapping into our website and materials. We know that students have different trajectories after high school, and so one thing we want to make sure we can do is to add additional information around the 2-year process and alternative pathways. Finally, number one question that people ask, how do I afford college? So we're building out that information. Things that shouldn't be complicated and yet are the variety of financial aid award letters, understanding what they actually say, the fact that thousands of eligible students do not apply for financial aid that they are eligible for. They don't know how to search for scholarships or to do it efficiently and effectively. These are all things that we are continuing to build out. Our approach, because we want to make sure that these resources remain free for students, is that we are pursuing a path of corporate sponsorships. We have managed to land one this past spring, a $10,000 donation from UniDays. So we're continuing to try to seek out companies that, for reasons either that they want to reach this audience, or they really believe in the cause, can help us with this runway. We are more cautiously pursuing the pay-what-you-can pricing because the optics of what we are doing, I think, are really valuable and really important. And so we don't want to tread too much into basically the for-profit or the private college counselor space because I think a really powerful thing of what we offer is this trust and this relatability and authenticity of the student voice of our founders. So that's my much shorter piece. I'm sure you have lots of questions from what I said, but thank you for listening. Yeah.
Have you looked at the Tom's model of buy one, give one?
Yeah.
As a possibility? Because that kind of inoculates you from what you're talking about in terms of perception.
Right. Yeah. So here's a funny thing. So I'm a lifelong educator. Like I know lots about this stuff. And came into this space to learn more about the business stuff. I'm the one saying we should do that, and our founders are like, no, we want to be free. So I'm like, okay guys, we have to we're having those discussions because I think that there's all kinds of ways that we can do this. And we have to be sustainable to be able to continue. So
Exactly.
Yeah.
Free doesn't keep lights on.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, there's only so long I'm like burning the midnight oil to get the material done because I have to have a day job. It's hard. Yeah.
So I have a little brother through Big Brothers Big Sisters.
Yeah.
And he was in the Avid program, and he was given help from 80 million different directions, and he didn't take any initiative.
I know. Right.
So how do you get kids to actually use a powerful tool like this?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. So I have kids myself, And you would think, maybe it's because they have me for a month, they're not. I mean, there's all kinds of weird generational things where I'm like, my parents didn't even know what colleges I applied to. That was probably a bad idea. Now we are like, we are not the one applying to college, you need to do it. So there is a lot of that reluctance. I think part of it is that it seems so overwhelming. There's almost an avoidance thing. What we have found is that we're trying to keep the student voice, and as best as we can tell, the subscribers to our newsletter and the traffic we are seeing are adults who are like, you know, Johnny, look at this, read this, you know, people who really are concerned that students aren't, you know, because they're 17 or 18, you know. So yeah, so essentially that was the big piece for the train the trainer, is to have, you know, I think what we're hoping is that, I mean, this guide is downloadable as a PDF. It's pretty much as low tech as you can get, and we've thought about, you know, engineering it more, and so far what we hear is like people just like being able to, you know, download things really easily and go through it later.
Yeah, but if you're like me, you download it, it sits on your hard drive until 6 months later you delete it because you haven't looked at it. Well, one thing to consider is the peer team approach to getting people to engage with this, you know, because as an adult I can tell my kids all day long they should do this, they won't do it, but if there's a peer team aspect to it. So I'm just playing out in my head, you got a rural science teacher who's got a handful of really good students that they know they have college level potential or beyond. What can that person do to make them do it? Well, they can't make them, but they can perhaps bring them together and say, hey guys, let's have a book club, let's have a team, let's have a mutually supportive / accountable approach to getting it going, and then drip out the content from the book in bite-sized pieces so that, hey, this week we're looking at this chapter, section, whatever, we're going to get together, we're going to talk about it, and there's an action item associated with each one of those things. Like, this week, all we're doing is we're making sure we all have a LinkedIn profile. Why? Because guess what? Students need the LinkedIn profile now, not after they graduate, and that might give them the data resource that you can then cut and paste into applications, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. So yeah, so that mentor network that I only touched on very briefly, so we've got other team members who are like, we need someone who's going to help walk it through. So we're at a point now where we have a couple pilot high schools. It's a heavy lift to make sure, and so I think what we're trying to do is say, we still very much want to have this platform, we still want to have this website where, because believe it or not, so the other tool we have that we put on there is a Zendesk, like can I help you chat tool. And it's very anecdotal, but just based on what we can tell by people's names and where they're, you know, if we can check, you know, their IP address, whatever, they're coming from overseas. So there is a contingent of really information-hungry people who are like, I need to figure this out. And actually, about a quarter of our traffic continues to be from outside the U.S. So we've even tried to figure out like what should we do with that, and we've built out like an international supplement guide. But to your point, so what we hope is in that situation, schools will use our mentor network curriculum that we're developing to walk them through. But you know, in a lot of rural schools, their numbers are so low, they don't even have a full-time school counselor. And so one of the barriers is, perhaps not surprisingly, they're like, let me have something so at least I can just hand them something, because I have absolutely no time to talk to them about this priority.
A few things you said have sparked this question for me. One, mainly like your personal family story. Who do you see as being, who are you tracking and seeing using this more? Is it parents, counselors, or the students themselves who are already overwhelmed with all this other stuff that's going on?
Yeah.
And who is it written for? It sounds like for the students.
So because the founders are students, they wrote it as students. And so we're trying, I mean, I've added to the content because I know it well, and I'm trying to continue with that student voice. You know, here is the paradox, is that it's counselors, we believe, because counselors use emails. Adults use emails, kids don't use emails. So we're, but the challenge is when they have to submit applications, they gotta suddenly know how to do those kinds of things. So it is a communications challenge we're trying to address. So we're exploring having a texting tool where we ask optional, for students to voluntarily provide their cell phone numbers, and then we can text them at different deadlines. I've just on the side, I continue to mentor students, and it's confounding. They can pass calculus, they can do 3 varsity sports, and if you're like, did you fill out the FAFSA? Oh yeah, let me get it. So it is a.
And that's what sparked just even from my personal experience, I'm thinking about my daughter, who is very involved in a lot of things, focusing on academics, focusing on ACT test preparation. I don't know that she's going to have much of an interest of adding this as well to all those other things going on, but I have a vested interest in reading it and helping her get to her ultimate goal, and hopefully doing it at the right price.
Yeah, so I guess for us, the equity issue or the justice issue is, so in my longer version, one of the fastest growing areas in the higher ed industry or whatever are private counselors. And it is parents and those with means who are like exactly like you, like, oh my gosh, we got to figure out how to organize this. So it's almost like having an executive functioning skills clinic or something, One workaround is that our resources, because we've kept them very freely available, is we are trying to work through college access organizations, and then they will use the materials and walk them through. If you saw the guide, you'd actually see that it's like, checklist, here's what to do your freshman year, here's what to do your sophomore year. So it is trying to chunk it out and make it as manageable as it can be. To say, whatever that Gen Z mindset is like here are 10 things you should do, and for them to use those kinds of ways to work through the process. Yeah, it's, but the issue is if you don't have a parent who's doing it, like there should still be a way that you can try to figure out how to navigate this situation.
It would seem that maybe adding somebody that's familiar with gaming and game theory might be an interesting add to your team, because kids, it's funny, I look at projects like this and it's kind of like people of a certain age trying to help other people of a certain age be successful, but not in the language that they speak anymore. Yeah. And texting is kind of like one thing, but as I'm going through this, I'm thinking, if I were a kid trying to figure this out, what I'd want is immediate success in small steps, kind of like when a kid picks up a video game and they're okay with failing as long as they can have a little success along the way and then they fail and it takes 2 more steps, it's kind of 2 steps. And it would seem to me that if rather than, I shouldn't say rather, because I don't know anything about this, I don't want to tell you anything about, but at the end of the day, just set it up with the notion that how can we guide them through this in a way that speaks their language a little bit, kind of like a game or a pathway or structuring the software somehow that says, I kind of get you, I understand you, you're a rural kid with this kind of background, this kind of economic thing, 1 parent to 2 parents or whatever. I kind of get where you're coming from, let me help you in a way that a kid understands. Mostly gaming.
Well, so I'm along for the ride. So like we have a TikTok and we have something on Discord. I'm not a gamer at all. So there is part of our team that's exploring how we might do that. Yeah, it's not coming from me.
Or me either.
Yeah, I'm gonna steal the last question. So do you have any colleges buying in on this? I remember being in high school and the community college coming around and saying, hey, fill out these applications, it doesn't matter if you're going to start school, fill them out anyway. I wonder if that's another potential connection factor for getting this in front of students.
It is definitely a potential area, and I used to work on the college admissions side. And I think we just have to be very careful because, like, you can do this now where you can be like, I want to find a nursing school. You get a sponsored content site, and the results you're getting are not necessarily the ones with the best track records. You're getting the ones that paid to be promoted. So we're exploring different ways that we can partner with colleges. A lot of folks in this space are basically working with high-achieving, low-income students. And you know, there's a phenomenon called undermatching. So you might be brilliant, but if you're low-income and first generation, you may not realize that actually Harvard is accessible to you. You will probably graduate with no debt. What I didn't say is the two students that started this are Harvard students and now Harvard grads, and they came from very low-income backgrounds. But so some philanthropies and some approaches are saying, let's just really work with the cream of the crop. They're motivated, they're talented, we know they can succeed in college. And that's a worthy group to focus on, but it's not, I mean, we've got 3.5 million high school graduates a year, and the undermatching phenomenon by most counts is like under 100,000. So we're trying to do the big hairy goal of like, how can we reach the rest of them, you know? And how do we do it, back to your point, like how do we do this in a way where we aren't just looking like we're promoting colleges? So it's, I know, it's tough. Like, there's a lot of low-hanging fruit, I think, where we could get the revenue, and I think we just have to work through how we do this, and we still seem like we are student first, I think, so.
All right, well, let's hear it for the fair opportunity. So I know our CoSE representative took off because he had some other obligations. Are you going to be around for?
I am around, yes.
Great,
Yep.
so if anybody wants to chat there. Otherwise, another quick reminder, Go Grab the 1 Million Cuts app. Make sure to check in. I checked a little bit earlier. We have at least half of the people that are here have checked in. So woo, good on you guys. Also, I have nothing else. So have a good rest of your day.
That's awesome, you're a big brother.